What is going on, guys? Welcome in to another episode of Nebraska Huskers Live. We enter Big Ten play this week against Illinois. And as you can see over there, based on the Illinois hat and the somewhat orange walls that aren't supposed to be Illinois colors, but close enough. Sonny Verma. So Sonny Verma is my co-host on the Big Ten show. And just a heads up, we will be doing a live watch party of the game. We will preview, or probably talk about that a little bit and get more people in here. He's a host of the Illini cast and Locked On Illini. So, Sonny, do you want to just go ahead and tell people where they can find you and what you got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you did such a wonderful job right there. Again, Illini cast, Locked On Illini is daily Illini content. So if that fits your flavor at all. And also, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, you can find me on Bears on Tap, where I do Sunday previews and post-game reports.
I will say, since we started the Big Ten show, whose mic's not working? Mine? Ken, is my mic not working? Hang on one second. Let me verify this. All right. Can y'all hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, somebody said it's working great. You can hear me.
I can hear you, yeah.
All right. You can hear me. Nebraska, Ken, are you messing with me? Ken just got this nice studio, so I think he just wants to come here and troll me. I think that's what it is. He's got like the nicest studio in Husker podcasting, so he just wants to come on here and just, I guess get after me. So, but yeah, so big game this week, and like I said, you're a Bears fan. My Texans beat your Bears. I needed a win. This could be a bet. This could be a good week for me. So I'm 1-0 so far this week, trying to go 2-0. But let's go ahead and dive into it, man. And, I was talking to you a little bit about this yesterday. I was kind of diving into the film, like it's a camera mic and not your other one. Cool. Let me check on that real quick.
I do agree with that. Your voice does sound a little different. Yeah.
Bear with me here, guys. It's doing this again where it's not letting me switch. Yeah. The camera or the audio. Interesting. I don't like this at all. I got to figure out a way to fix this. So, Sonny, while we work on this, do you mind if I leave you solo while I just fix my thing real quick? And I just want to, I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you to just go ahead and give your quick thoughts on just how you feel going into this game as an Illinois fan, just so we can get a feel for, and the fan base in general. Like, just how are y'all feeling about the team? How do you feel like you match up in this team? Is there a confidence or what overall are you feeling? And
sure.
I'm going to back out and come right back in.
You go do your thing. As an Illini fan, there's no reason for me to ever not feel completely optimistic and elated when the Illini win their first 3 games and start the season off 3-0. We haven't done this now that Justin's gone, this is now an Illini show. Let's talk basketball recruiting. Let's talk, no, I'm kidding. The Illini haven't gone 3-0 to start off a football season since 2011. And so obviously we don't have the history that Nebraska has had, 15, 20 plus years out, I say respectfully. But, with what Brett Bielema has kind of built with this program lately, I've been trying to tell folks that the floor of the program has been raised every single year. And this year, I think because of the new influx of recent coaches we've had in the conference, including Matt Rule, we can talk Luke Fickell, Ryan Walters, obviously a former Illinois head coach. Like, Brett Bielema in Illinois has kind of become old news. We've almost kind of been forgotten after what happened 2 years ago, where we started off the season 7-1 and unfortunately stumbled late in the year. But, I say it's inarguable that we had the best defense in the country that year. But now the shine has kind of worn off and we've missed Bowls games 2 out of 3 years. And for that reason, we're, in my opinion, overlooked. I had the Vegas over-under for the season was 5.5. I believe, a lot of experts were talking about 4 games. I even had one at 3, which to me just seems surprising. Like, the high-end talent may not be there the way you guys have at Nebraska, but the coaching is. And if there's one thing Brett Bielema does, it's he develops players. I talked about this on yesterday's episode of Locked On Illini. Feel free to check it out if you get a chance. The Illini, according to 24/7 Talent Composite, have the 18th best roster in the Big Ten right now. And that's a culmination of all the stars that are on the team. Only 8 4-stars. And yet they're sitting here at 3-0. And a big reason for that is the coaching staff. It's Brett Bielema, it's Aaron Henry, it's Barry Lunny Jr., Bart Miller, like all these guys who are taking, mid to high 3-stars and developing them into, low 4-star type of players in college football. Devin Weatherspoon, we all know, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL now. He was a 0-star.
I don't know why I'm Jackson Johnson right now. So for some reason it was going through my camera audio, and then
I like Jackson too, so it's fine. Yeah, Jackson's a little nicer.
Good. It was going through my
It
was going through my camera audio, and then so like I tried to remove my camera because StreamYard's not letting me change my mic, and then it just removed my camera completely.
I'm just going to go ahead and turn this into Illinois Fighting Illini Live. We'll see how many people tune in.
Yeah, it does. Ken, you're right. It's doing the same thing it did the other day, Ken. But I will continue to work on this while I talk to you. But yeah, so were you done? Were you done with your preview part?
For the most part, I was kind of just elaborating on a couple things. But let's
go ahead, because I can listen now and I want to bounce off of it.
And yeah, no, I was just going to say, the job that Brett Bielema has done here, just to kind of wrap things up. Again, number 18 in the 24/7 Talent Composite rankings in the Big Ten. And when you think about it, now we're at 3-0, halfway to a bowl, which is ultimately our goal this year. Team looks better than it has, or I wouldn't say better, but it looks as good as it's been the last couple of years. Luke Altmaier, I'm sure we're going to talk about him in a little bit. He's showing continued growth as a quarterback, and finally he gets a chance to be in the second season with the same offensive coordinator. Things are optimistic. I don't think I'm not saying we're going to finish with 8-9 wins by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also very confident that we'll finish closer to my preseason prediction of 7 wins, as opposed to some of the writers and national writers out there who simply had us at like 4.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, sorry, I just had to change it to the Iowa Hawkeye picture real quick. I just figured out how to change it on the fly.
Now you're really pissing off an Illinois fan.
I know. All right. Oh, my bad. I'm pissing off everybody in this chat right now with the Iowa picture. We were talking about it kind of the other day, just in terms of the matchup, right? And when it comes to the matchup, you were talking about how when Illinois entered the season, the matchup wise, you thought Illinois matched up pretty well, strength versus weakness to Nebraska. And when it comes to kind of what you've seen so far and talking about just how that's changed and how you're feeling a little bit, I guess, a little more uneasy in terms of kind of how your strengths and weaknesses have played out over the season. Can you elaborate a little bit on what some of those things are that may have you a little bit more concerned about this game?
Absolutely. So this is a Brett Bielema team that's not necessarily playing Brett Bielema ball. When you think of Brett Bielema, you think, running the ball, big offensive lineman, dominant offensive lineman, dominant defensive lineman. This is not that type of team. On offense, we have, in my opinion, we have as good a skill players as the Cornhuskers do, with the way Altmaier, Zachary Franklin, Pat Bryant, they've been playing. If you take a look, I think Bryant and Zachary are in like the top 7 or 8 when it comes to receiving in the Big Ten, 2 potential all Big Ten players.
Absolutely.
But this year, as the season started, the 2 transfers we got on the outside, Ryan Priestley and J.C. Davis, they played fantastic at the tackle spot. Mm-hmm. But in our interior offensive line, we've struggled pretty greatly. Now, some say it might be due to injury, but it just hasn't been reported yet. But, a lot of people know the name Caden Fagan. He's 6'3", 250 pounds. He's a complete bowling ball type of running back. And it was his emergence last year as a true freshman that turned the Illinois season around. We were 3-5 at one point, and we kind of turned the season around at that point. Then he got hurt, and all of a sudden we lost our last 2 games again. He was supposed to be a big part of our team this year. In fact, one of my bold predictions on Locked On Illini was Caden Fagan would finish top 5 in the Big Ten in rushing yards. Mm-hmm. But because he's that big, burly type, at 6'3", 250, you can't be very shifty. And what he tends to do is he locates and runs to a spot. And unfortunately, with the struggles with this offensive line is having, he's not finding that spot. And so, ironically enough, if you take a look at his rushing stats over the last couple of games, they're not very impressive. And so all of a sudden you have a Brett Bielema team going up against a Nebraska team that, while, again, my perceived weakness of your guys's is your run defense. Normally, again, preseason, I would have been like, this is fantastic. This is what Illinois is going to be built on. But that hasn't been the case through the first three games. Again, we may be undefeated at 3-0, but it's not because of the run game. And so all of a sudden, we're going to have to rely more on Luke Altmaier and those the ball hawking quarterbacks that we have. It's easier to count on a game-to-game basis on sacks or tackles for loss. Our linebackers aren't having a fantastic year thus far. And so all of a sudden, we're putting a lot of pressure on the units that aren't necessarily known to being Brett Bielema units.
Correct. Yeah. And Nebraska's run defense, for what it's worth, it average wise, not giving up a lot of average, per carry, but overall just teams, Northern Iowa running the ball, trying to run the ball a lot and stuff like that. So, which
is what I was basing that on, basically just watching them, like they kept going to it over and over again.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest thing is as we enter Big Ten play that I would like to see is just kind of how this run defense kind of holds up to the more big physical, style. Because again, last year we had an excellent run defense. However, we got a team like Michigan, that came in and was extra physical and ran the ball all over us. I do think we have a nice front seven, but our front six rather in the way this works. But the thing about it is, it's all about schematics, and Tony White has to really scheme up to stop the run just with the bait, because Illinois runs the same 3-3-5 that we do. So you kind of understand how it's all about scheming up to stop the run game, just because you lose a little bit of that front, that little muscle up front when you replace that defensive lineman with that defensive back.
Sure.
So I'm going to go into some comments right here. StreamYard hates you. It does. They cover this weekend. We talking about Nebraska or Illinois? The spread's at what?
I've seen it anywhere as low as 9 and as high as 10.
Oh, it's at 9 and 10. Okay. Yeah. How you feeling about the spread?
Honestly, I think that's too many points, and I mean that respectfly. We talked about. We can spoiler alert it now. To me, it's going to be first one to 24 wins, and I think both teams can score a touchdown or two. I don't think either one is going to go, off for low 40s points or anything like that. So if you're going to, let's just say if you're going to give Illinois 10 points on a Friday night against a freshman quarterback with the way this defense is playing, I'll take the 10 points.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and so that's another thing too. Is just I think the potential of the game to be shortened, right? Because again, it's two physical teams that may want to be able to just go in there and kind of control the clock, try to wear the other defense down. I think that could shorten the game, shorten possessions, and really help kind of keep it a little bit closer. One team may backdoor cover, team may pull away late, but I think the hardest part of this is just like, both teams are kind of performing to a level where, our fan bases thought they could. However, now I think we're starting to see what potentially both teams could be. And I think right now, since it's the first test, it's just really hard to know. Like one thing that I want to see, and I'm pretty sure this is probably part of the game plan for y'all, is I want to see how Dylan Raiola, kind of handles taking hits, taking shots, and being able to kind of battle through those. He hasn't really had to take too many hits. He hasn't got beat up a little bit, but like what happens when he does start to take those hits? How does he respond? Does he make mistakes? And, how much pressure from what you've seen so far defensively, and I'll get into a little bit of what I saw from y'all's defense so far watching the film too. What do you think y'all's approach will be in terms of trying to keep him, reeled in and keep him from getting in his rhythm and flow?
Secrets out. Matt Rule talked about it, I think, yesterday during his press conference. When you have a young 18-year-old freshman quarterback, he hasn't dealt with the defense to the caliber of Illinois, and he's preparing him to know that we're going to be masking cover or man constantly, trying to confuse the young kid. And if you really think like that's the game script for Illinois to come out victorious here. Again, you've referenced, you and I have talked about this before. The game script for Illinois has to be that we have to have Nebraska down early and put the pressure on Dylan Raiola. At no point this season has he felt the need that he's needed to carry this team. Like he's played fantastic. Don't get me wrong. He's lived up to the hype that we all heard in the offseason. But
for sure,
at some point, he's going to have to face a little adversity. And so the idea is, if Illinois, I think we've scored on every single first possession we've had. If we get the ball first, or we get some points on the board, and all of a sudden we can go up 7-0 or 10-3, if we can rattle him a little early and get an interception, that's what I want to see, where Dylan Raiola comes. So I think that's going to be the key. Basically, try to rattle the kid, because he's performed great so far, but he hasn't played a Big Ten defense yet.
100%. And Northern Iowa, Colorado, and UTEP are a far cry from the Big Ten physicality. But it'll be a good game for him in that sense, just because we get to see. But just hopefully, it's one of those things where he can kind of continue his rhythm, and he is a big body guy, so hopefully that does help. But again, it's something we have yet to see, and that's I think it's the biggest question mark of this game, is just of the unknown, just because he is a freshman. We know what Altmaier is, right? We know Altmaier can be good in flashes. We know, you are going to have a stout, solid defense. And one of the biggest things that I did see is y'all do play a lot of, single high safety over the top. Y'all do like to do a lot of man coverage, but you do have some sticky defenders, right? Because Nebraska runs a lot of wheel routes, and Kansas, from watching the film, they ran a lot of wheel routes on y'all. And I'm going to go through a film breakdown later this week. But y'all have guys that literally can run across. The thing about Colorado was, we would have guys come across the formation, we'd move in motion, and Kansas did a ton of motions on y'all. And they would come across the formation, and we would try to just kind of get one of our speedsters out on those wheel routes and get them up the field. Now, Jalen Lloyd and Ja'Cory Barney are a little bit quicker than what Kansas has, but again, y'all got some sticky receiver or DBs with really good ball skills. Just going through a couple of the people that I had seen yesterday, I got some of my notes here, just a little bit of my notes from the film review, but the biggest ones that stuck out for me were Matthew Bailey. There was a big run on Kansas where he came across to make a play. Like, just he's very he tries to make a play no matter where he's out on the field. He could be on the opposite end of the field. He's just a high effort guy. He's going to go try to make a play. Number 6, Dennis Briggs, fantastic off the line. He's really good at just throwing linemen off. He's not, it doesn't seem like he has a plethora of pass rush moves, but he just kind of moves people.
And I think he's been in college football for like 7 years now. So it's like, with Briggs, the story has always been, can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, he's a plus Big Ten lineman. Yeah,
because he was the one who came in from Florida State, right?
Correct.
Had 77 tackles or something like that, and about 5 sacks over at his time at Florida State. And then, of course, Dylan Rosiek, number 28, the linebacker, had 616 snaps last season. So he's a guy who you can trust to be in the game, who's going to play a lot. And he was only beat by Seth Coleman. Well, Jerzon Newton, but he's not there anymore. Seth Coleman had 625 snaps and 6 sacks. So number 9, Seth Coleman's another one that you got to keep an eye on. But just there's a lot of individual players on this that makes this unit a very good defense. And even though you lost, the likes of Jerzon Newton, and you lost some of your experience, you do have a lot of experience returning. And then what you did replace, like even we were talking about the Texas transfer,
Terrence Brooks.
Terrence Brooks coming in, and he couldn't even cut the roster. He could even make, he's a backup, or is he even playing?
Yeah, no, surprisingly, there was a lot of publicity when Illinois went out and got Terrence Brooks, and, we invested a lot in our NIL. We knew, or we thought, that the secondary was going to be one of the weaknesses coming into this season. So Terrence Brooks, a guy who started in a college football playoff game, for a university like Texas, just because you may not be good enough for Texas doesn't mean you can't be good enough for, a school like the Big Ten. Right. So Yeah, there was a lot of talk about, he would be the number one cornerback, but ever since the season has started, it turns out he's not even a starter. And now the coaches have said some of this has to do with they want Terrence to show more consistency. Now, obviously, that's coach speak, so we don't really know what that means. But I mean, with the play of Xavier Scott, Miles Scott, Torrey Cox Jr. has done really well. The secondary, which is really funny if you think about it, because in my preview of the season this year, the secondaries was the position group I was most worried about.
Mhm.
And yet here we are, and they're probably our second best unit that we have.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Miles Scott and Xavier Scott, just exceptional ball skills. And just watching Matthew Bailey out there, like he's a do-it-all guy. He does everything well.
So let me tell you a little bit about Matthew Bailey as well. He had a fantastic freshman year as safety, and he was considered the heir apparent to Sidney Brown, if you recall, the All Big Ten safety who ended up getting drafted, I think, by the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL draft. But Matthew Bailey got hurt in the offseason, and then he only played one half of last year. And so he was going to be one of our defensive captains. He essentially missed the entire season. So when we talk about, Illinois' fall from grace when it comes to their defense last year, they not only lost 3 NFL players to the tops in the top 70 picks, but they lost the guy who they assumed was going to be the heir apparent at safety, the leader of that defensive backfield in Matthew Bailey. And so this year, like you're watching on tape right now, you kind of see just how valuable a guy like that is out there. He doesn't quite play like Sidney Brown. He doesn't hit as hard, but for a guy as young as he is, and again, this is a guy who I think was a 3-star. He was recruited as an athlete. He's simply been coached up by Aaron Henry and Ryan Walters before him. And he's one of those unheralded stars. I think by the time next year rolls around, everyone's going to know his name.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, does my audio sound better?
Yes, your audio sounds better.
Cool. I sacrificed my camera for that. So Fong Wei got a question here. Sonny, do you think Brett will be satisfied with sticking around if he has success? I believe he's an Illinois kid. Really like him as a person, as I've seen some feature stories about him. Thanks.
I think so. You're right. He was born and raised in Illinois. Obviously, he went to Iowa as a head or as an assistant or as a player, and then he was an assistant coach for a while. And then obviously everyone knows about Wisconsin. With Brett, he's done the SEC thing already.
Yeah.
I think right now he's not at the age where he's like a young up and coming coach anymore. Mm-hmm. He sees what the cutthroat business is in some other teams and with other fan bases. With Illinois, if he can go 6-6 for the next 3-4 seasons, he's going to be the most successful coach we've had in 40 years.
Yeah.
And so the pressure isn't nearly there. He's built a beautiful house down. He's got a great relationship with the AD. So similar to, the feedback I've gotten on Matt Rule and, his enjoying Lincoln, I feel the same way about Brett.
Yeah, exactly. And Brett, to me, I it's a little bit to me like I feel like Bielema is an Illinois guy as much as Shiano is like a Rutgers guy in a way. Like I feel like that's just the perfect situation for those two to be in, and I think that's the best situation for those two programs to have those guys at the helm.
Exactly. Brett Bielema is the type of coach that the University of Illinois needs.
Yeah.
Illinois is not going to be recruiting, a dozen 4-stars or 5 or 6 5-stars every year. They need guys who fit a certain type of system and can be coached up. Brett Bielema, through his stops, you can tell he learned a lot from leaving Arkansas. He started, I think he was an analyst with the New York Giants. He spent a year with Bill Belichick. Right now, I would argue he's one of the best CEO type of coaches, in the country. And when one assistant coach leaves, it's very rare that he doesn't have a whole Rolodex of guys he's already, considering bringing on. And so just like Illinois in its ideal scenario is probably a developmental school, I think for that reason, Brett Bielema is pretty much the perfect guy for the Illini.
I'd have to agree completely. And if y'all have any more questions in terms of Illinois, Nebraska, keep dropping them in here. I'm going to just run through some of these comments here. Brett Bielema scares the heck out of me. I'm not gonna lie, he does to me too. Just because I don't know, I just feel like he's a really good coach, and again, I just think he's a good coach, and not only that, like any coach who just is a very physical style, physical brand of football, it always scares me because you never know what happens in those type of games. We saw Rutgers last year in the first half of Michigan. Their physicality alone kept them in that first half of that game, and it was pretty much, I think, tied at halftime. So, doesn't help one of our best man O lineman is not playing this weekend. Yes, and there was another question here about that, which I'll get into. Watching from the Philippines. What's going on, RS? Appreciate you tuning in and watching the show. Don't recall having ads on this slide. Had 2 already.
He's not kidding. I've had a bunch also on. I've got my phone playing over there, so I don't know if you guys change your settings around.
No, YouTube automatically places them. So I don't know. I'll probably have to go in there and manually do them, but I kind of just have it to where I've had it the same to where YouTube just does them, and I have them at I don't have them at a high frequency. Like I have them at like whatever they recommended. So like so maybe I'll go in there. If y'all keep having that issue, let me know and I'll go in there and change them. I apologize about that. Again, I have no visibility on that on my end about how many you are getting. So apologies about that. Tell your friends and family, your frenemies at cashiers at Whole Foods. I appreciate that, Jackson. Thanks for
Jackson's the best.
He's the best. That's why I had his picture up there for a little bit. I'm glad the show's on a 6, so don't compete with the big red wrap up. Yeah, I try my best to not like overlap with other shows too, so everybody can tune into every show they get a chance to. Ohio State will be a real adversity. Well, that is going to be some real adversity as well. Let's see. All right, here we go. How big is the loss of Mazuka? So think about Mazuka. That's our offensive lineman that they're talking about.
He's a guard, right?
Yes. Yeah. And coming down here, heard Mazuka got into it with the coaches. So that is what I heard as well. Now, I heard that there was a spat with him at the end of the Colorado game with Coach Donovan Raiola. Nothing's been confirmed. They're keeping it close to the vest, but I would assume since they haven't come out and said anything about that, that may be the case because it's not an injury, clearly. It's not a NCAA suspension, or we would probably know about it. It seems like something that was handled in-house, but he will also be out this week, according to what I've heard. So, and BA heard the same thing as well. So, Moose, I am here. I promise. I had to sacrifice my camera because my audio was crap. And then I disconnected the camera from the computer, and now I don't know how to get it back connected to the computer. So yeah, StreamYard is not my friend. It would not let me switch my audio. Like, yeah, it's the same thing I posted on Twitter the other day.
Justin's being a polite host. He knows how insecure I get when he wears his sleeveless shirts, and here I got to cover myself so I don't look as weak as he does.
I got sleeves today, sir. I don't want to hear it.
Was it a chilly 95 in Arizona today?
Hey, it's actually cool. But it really might be 95 though, now that I think about it. I have Nebraska beating Illinois this week. I think it's a low scoring. Well, that's kind of what we were alluding to earlier. Never mind me, got Nebraska 31-17. Oh, you're confident in that. Had an ab when the stream started, but it was only 5 seconds. Appreciate that. At least somebody's happy with. I'm trying to control what I can control, guys. 27-13 Nebraska. Like you said, the first one to 24 you think would get the win?
For me, if one team hits 24, I think that's all it's going to take to win. I like both defenses. And, I'm sure at the end we're going to, talk about our final predictions or whatever and how the game script goes. And, I think first one to 24 wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Illinois linebackers definitely seem to be ball hawks. And, the thing about the Illinois defense is they seem to be very opportunistic. And,
exactly,
I do like some of the schemes that I've seen from Bielema. I do think he game planned Kansas very, very well.
Absolutely.
The coordinator game plan for Kansas very, very well. And Kansas does do some similar things as Nebraska. It's not, of course, close to the overall thing, but just in terms of some of the things that they run in their offense. So Illinois has seen at least a team that has some speed, that is a decent team that can be able to do some of these things. But yes, the linebacker, number 28 especially, like he was the most experienced linebacker, one of the most experienced on your team, like I said. And really the thing with him is, sometimes his eyes will get a little lost. The thing about a 3-3-5 is you do have to keep your eyes from getting crossed up, and that's where all the motions come into play. But it's few far and in between, right? The more I watched, it seemed like he got better as the game went along too. but he does a good job of feeling his responsibility, not getting too far out of position. Just sometimes he gets a little lost in coverage and or with his eyes just kind of getting crossed up on those motions. So premium, luckily no ads for me. I'm happy about that. The change you're noticing about the ads is a YouTube thing. Yeah, I don't adjust anything. I keep it kind of at the same level. So Satterfield says he's ready for a fist fight. Mazuka might be our only player that's thrown hands in a game. Literally, that Florida. Great picture, by the way. That I don't know if you saw that picture that I posted the other day, Sonny, of Mazuka at Florida. The guy with the boxing stance up, but that was Mazuka. So he's a grinder. 67-3 Nebraska. I think it's a second, like 60-something. I think Coach BA had 69-3 earlier. This Friday will be the first. I appreciate it, Jackson. Thanks for the $5, man. This Friday will be the first ranked versus ranked matchup for Illinois since 9/27/2008, where Illinois went against Penn State, lost 38-24. That's kind of wild, actually. I think Nebraska's might have been. Was it that Ohio State game where he got blown out? I don't remember. No, actually, don't. It might have been. Yeah, it was. It was the Ohio State game where we got blown out in Columbus. Hopefully, Michigan doesn't get embarrassed at home against USC. Well, that's a whole different topic. But yeah. I think Michigan can stay in that game. I'm just kidding on the 69-3. My real prediction is 28-20 good guys. Yeah, I figured 2016. Yeah. So, all right. So moving over, what is the general feel for what Bielema and the staff are saying? If you've had a chance to listen to kind of what they're talking about and alluding to in this game, what are some of the things that Bielema is talking about and kind of giving intel on what he's kind of trying to prepare for this game or anything that, of note that you've noticed he said?
What I kicked off the show talking about, that he recognizes he's got 4 good running backs there. And because the 4 good running backs haven't performed necessarily, well, 2 of them have done decently well. Josh McRae actually had a very good game last game. And we have a 4-star true freshman named Khalil Valentine, who, Justin, I know you're going to be watching film. Take a look at him. He really looks like he might actually be the best running back for this offensive line that's in front of him. He's able to juke his way out if the hole's not there.
Yeah.
He's basically talked about how they need to play mistake-free football against Nebraska. We had one of our outstanding tackles who was, I believe, from Grambling or Howard, Melvin Priestley. He's been grading out fantastic on PFF, but he's just had some boneheaded penalties on him. And literally, Brett Bielema called him out in the press conference post-game after Central Michigan, saying, Melvin Priestley, when he plays for our team, is one of the best players on the field.
Yeah.
Basically call him out that, hey, stop making mistakes benefiting the other team. So I think that's how it's going to be. Brett is notorious for really not trying to give any sort of hints whatsoever. He closes off practices to writers and whatnot. And I don't blame him. Illinois needs every single advantage that they can get. We're not the type where we're throwing out, 4 and 5-star talents, as I keep alluding to. So he kind of keeps it close to the vest, but he did spend a few minutes talking about that running back room and how he needs to get them going in order to come up victorious Friday night.
And defensively, just out of curiosity, and I don't know if you touched on this at the beginning, but what do you think is your biggest concern going into this? If you touched on this in the beginning, I know you talked about the Nebraska's run defense, but what is your biggest concern from what you've seen so far about?
Well, I think the biggest advantage when we talk unit versus unit is your guys' rushing game against our rush defense. You're watching the Kansas tape now. We could not stop Devin Neal. We couldn't stop Devin Neal last year. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, Kotelnicki is no longer the offensive coordinator at Kansas because for some reason they just stopped rushing the ball and they kept trying to make Jalen Daniels win it. But as you mentioned, Brett game planned for that. We weren't very aggressive towards trying to sack Jalen Daniels. We kind of wanted him to throw. We wanted to keep him contained, force him to make a decision and force him to make a throw. And he couldn't do that. And I genuinely believe that Illinois gave out the game plan against Kansas because you saw UNLV do it the very next week, where he had another bad game. So, but Nebraska, if I'm sitting here talking about Kansas's running game, and then I talk about Nebraska's, I talked about this at the beginning of my post game after the last victory against Central Michigan. I'm very afraid. If this is a big victory for Nebraska, and I'm talking 10 plus, again, I don't think either team's going to get to 35 plus in this game. I think it's literally going to be because you guys just grind, just eat up on that defense, tiring them out. Just because right now, I don't know if we've got a solid baseline for the defensive line and the linebackers, but we don't have the star players there like we have on the secondary right now. I mean, Gabe Jackus, star player. I'm correcting myself. Seth Coleman, another star player. But you're talking about two guys where I don't know. For me, from what I've seen the first three games, even Central Michigan, when they wanted to, they were able to rush the ball. That's why I didn't mean any disrespect in the beginning, saying our rushing going up against your rush defense. I'm saying the same thing applies to us.
Yes. Yeah. And I agree with that, just because everything that we want to do comes off of that. Right. And that was kind of what Northern Iowa was trying to do. It was a lot of carries and they were just trying to get something, rolling. But that's a really good point, because the stable of running backs that we have, Dante Dowdle, Ramir Johnson, Gaber, they all do something a little different. You have Dowdle and Irvin, who are kind of your big power backs, but Dowdle can do a little bit of everything. Emmett Johnson, to me, still my favorite running back on this team. Every time he gets the ball, he does something special. And then Ramir, you're going to see a lot of passes to him. He's very, very shifty, and he's got his explosiveness back. So there's youth and there's experience in that running back room. So
keep in mind, again, if your running backs are performing the way I think they'll probably perform Friday night, then that puts less pressure on Dylan. And the whole game plan for Illinois is to try to put Dylan in the situation he's never been in before. You and I have talked about this. Friday night, both teams are 3-0, but only one team is getting all the attention. Of course, Nebraska, garners that attention with this rabid fan base that you guys have. And you have this, 5-star freshman quarterback who's come in, been 3-0, been very efficient. I think only has one interception. He's played very, very well. So, and the whole college football world is going to be watching this game, right? It's Friday night, prime time, Fox Sports 1. So the best angle that Illinois has is to try to rattle Dylan. But if Dylan's able to go around, hand the ball off 2-3 times, every down, then all of a sudden there's less pressure on him to make a play. And if he's forced to play or forced to make a throw, and, we can get Xavier Scott or Miles Scott, try to make a play, that's our chance of winning.
Correct. Yeah. And I think I might have. Oh, baby.
Hey, look at you, handsome.
Hey, I made it back. See, I don't even have a sleeveless shirt on. You were worried for no reason. Bro, I was trying to connect my camera this whole time, and I finally got it to work. So hopefully my sound's still good. Ken says 27-14. Huskers cover. I think the defense will be primed for another big night game performance. The black shirts are holding opponents to 6.7 per game, which does not bode well for Illinois. And another thing too, Ken, y'all can go check him out on Generation Red podcast. BA, y'all can check him out on the BA Coaches Show, as y'all can see there as well. A lot of good stuff going on there with their channels. Also, if y'all want to go check that out. And
speaking of which, I know Justin does not like doing this, so please hit the like button and subscribe button if you're watching this for the first time. Justin hates asking for it, but he does such a good job. Help the guy out.
Appreciate it. Need all the help I can get. No, because these ads aren't helping me. No, but okay. So, I'm curious to your take. Coming off of that Kansas win, it was a big win, of course. Whenever they lost, how did that change your opinion on how strong you feel like Illinois is at all? Or is it something where one of those things, like you said, you thought you all kind of gave the game plan almost to UNLV about how to do that?
It really, it's kind of a mix of both. Initially, absolutely. Them losing Friday night to UNLV made me question how good of a victory that was to begin with. But keep in mind, Kansas boat raced us last year, in week 2. I think we were down 34-7 or something like that going into the fourth quarter. So a win was a win. But, and again, I say this very respectfully, for me, the 3 games that Illinois has won and the opponents we've faced kind of match up with the 3 opponents that Nebraska has faced. Now, granted, Nebraska's look fantastic, but who would be favored in a Kansas versus Colorado game right now? I'm not. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's for me, one of the side stories of all this game Friday night is to really see how good these two games are,
Yes.
or these two teams are. You know, like Illinois, again, I was one of the more optimistic people when it comes to our preseason projections. I had us at 7 wins. Vegas had us at 5.5. Nebraska is 3-0, but everyone knew they were going to be 3-0. Like
Yeah.
the whole offseason story was how Nebraska, could very well start the season 6-0 or 7-0. So for me, it's like I don't think we've really learned anything about these teams.
Yes.
In particular with Nebraska, Dylan's played fantastic, and that, don't get me wrong, is a huge check mark on Nebraska's side. But Friday night, I really think what we do know at the very least is Nebraska and Illinois aren't in the bottom tier when it comes to the Big Ten.
Yeah, correct.
And because of that, let's just say we're going to see whether both of them are in the mid tier, one is in a tier higher. I think that's going to be kind of like what we're going to find out about these two teams.
Yeah, agreed. And BA has a good point here. He said, I think two things can be true. Kansas is bad, but Illinois game planned well and played well. And that is very true. And he said, I said it on the radio Monday, neither Nebraska or Illinois have faced a team as good as each other. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. Kind of like you were saying, I got asked a question on the Big Ten team rivalry show last night. They were kind of like, have your expectations of the season for Nebraska or your win total changed at all? And honestly, to your point, no, because I expected to be 3-0, right?
Yeah.
And I do think some things are going better than I expected. Colorado was a mixed bag just because they had explosive offense. So I do like that our defense can stop the explosive plays, but explosive plays are not really what we have to worry about against Illinois. It's just the battle of attrition and trying to, Illinois is going to try to beat us. They're probably going to try to get explosive plays, but it's all going to be a methodical approach leading up to that, similar to what Satterfield wants to do, right? He wants to get big, heavy sets, 12 personnel sometimes and be able to really assert, that physical run game and set up the deep pass. And I think there's a lot of what Illinois wants to do there as well. Another thing too is just, how efficient Satterfield was against Northern Iowa in terms of his drives. And a lot of fans were nitpicky about the game against Northern Iowa, but that is a strong physical team. And, the thing about it is Nebraska, I think it was 7 of 9 drives. They finished with at least points. So, very, very efficient in terms of that regard. What would you say, and I'm not sure if you've looked at this, I can take a peek too while we're talking about it. How efficient has your offense been in terms of scoring? Has it been good when you get down in the red zone? Is there any concerns in terms of, the ball between the 20s, but when you get in that, that red zone, has it been, as expected?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Again, I don't know the exact numbers ahead of us. I do want to take give a minute of attention to our kickers. I mean, every year it's seemingly like we have one of a guy running for Big Ten, all conference kicker, and this year's no different. We have 2, David Alano, and I forget this. We have a transfer from Texas A&M who, in his first kick, came in at halftime and kicked a 59-yard field goal right before the half. And so
funny.
We're almost locked in to get points, but we don't want to lose 4 points, if that makes sense. If we get in the field goal range, I feel very confident that we'll get 3 out of it. But of course, the objective is try to get 6 or 7.
Yes, absolutely. And looking through here against the Kansas, you had a field goal, a fumble, a punt, field goal, punt, touchdown, and a field goal.
We had a fantastic first drive, if I recall, and then we kind of disappeared for 2.5 quarters. And then the
14 plays, 62 yards in that first drive.
Fourth quarter, we just all of a sudden woke up, and Luke Altmaier made some plays. I think you're really going to be impressed by Pat Bryant, who's now a senior. Like, he's one of those prototypical stories that you just got to love. Like, he was mildly rated. He came in on special teams his first year, slowly worked his way up to like WR5. He was a blocking wide receiver. Now, he was in the shadows of Isaiah Williams last year, Casey Washington last year. Now he was slated as being the number 1 until we got Zachary Franklin. But Pat Bryant has been arguably one of the best receivers in the conference. And he's a fantastic blocker too. If you take a look at his PFF grades, it's what you want that developmental player story to look like.
Yeah, 100%. And just looking at like just kind of how y'all finished the game, right? Looking at your last drive against Kansas. Okay, so 7:36 left in the game when y'all got the ball, and it was a 17-20 game, right? And so Kansas had punted it away to you, probably expecting their defense to try to get them the ball back. So 7:36 left, and y'all went on a 15-play, 42-yard, 6-minute and 46-second drive.
Yep.
That basically ended with a field goal, 43 yards with 58 seconds left. So again, there is a ability there to control the clock, and I mean, nearly ran over half of that fourth quarter down just because they decided to give you the ball, and only 42 yards out of 15 plays, 42 yards, 646, and then the clutch field goal at the end by David Alano, 43 yards.
And a lot of it has to do with Luke Altmaier. Justin, I've always been high on Luke. The natural perception of Luke was that he had lost his job to John Paddock last year, but that really wasn't the case. Most people, they watched Luke Altmaier throw 4 interceptions in the first half against Penn State, and they wrote him off.
Yeah.
I think he had like 7 interceptions in his first 5 or 6 games, but in his last 6 games, he had 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He was really turning things around. Then, of course, he got hurt at Minnesota. The last drive, John Paddock comes in, leads him to a touchdown, and then John Paddock starts the next week against Indiana and throws for 530 some odd yards or something like that. You can't bench a guy who just threw for your school record in yards. The weaknesses on Altmaier last year were he seemed to second guess himself. It was his first true year as a starter in college football, and you can tell he wanted to make the throw, but he was a little unsure about it. That's gone this year. He doesn't have any interceptions this year. If you take a look at his completion percentage, is almost 70%. He's got, I believe, 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
Yep, no
interceptions. He's willing, he knows the throw to make, and he's making it. But the difference is he also knows which throws not to try anymore, and that it's okay to take the sack to live another day. And so, that comes with the coaching staff trusts him now. And, again, Luke, we all know that he can win a game with his legs too. He's a guy who can end the game with 89 rushing yards if he finds a hole.
Yep. And for what it's worth, looking at his stats from 2023 versus 2024, his completion percentage is up, 4.6% here. 647 yards in the first 3 games. His average per pass is up 1.3, which is significant yards per pass. 6 touchdowns to 0 interceptions after last year, 13 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Touchdown to interception TD ratio is exceptionally high, and then went from 130 to 1.9 quarterback rating to 164.3 so far this season. So he's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's being effective. He's being a consistent manager of the game, and he steps up when he needs to. Week 1, 79%, week 2, 64%, week 3, 65%. So pretty consistent. And that's right around you want your quarterback. Speaking of last year when Jeff Sims came over, I hate to talk about him, but they wanted him to be at about a 65% completion percentage because that'll win you games, especially in the Big Ten, especially if you got a good team around him. So, again, just his best QBR was actually against Kansas. So, against the best team that they faced, he had his highest QBR. So, a lot to be said about him. I just think he's experienced enough where he knows what to do with each moment. And I think he's going to be effective. And to be honest, he's doing a lot of what Dylan Raiola is doing. Maybe not quite as efficient or high as accuracy, but it's a very similar style, right? They're not making them too much, right? They'll move Raiola out of the pocket and throw deep if they need to, but they want to do a lot of rhythm stuff. Get people out over the middle and kind of get rhythm and then take the ball deep if need be. What he's good at is recognizing what Raiola's good at is recognizing one-on-one man coverage and being able to throw it up and trying to draw those PIs. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Illinois has to be aware of is just, when they're going against Nair and Jamal Banks, because y'all do like to run a lot of press man occasionally as well, is be able to make sure you try to defend him without getting a hand on him, because that is part of the offense, that they do want to draw those PIs, and he's going to throw it deep to try to draw those and put it in a place where either he can get them or nobody else can get them. I'm interested to see, though, because the level of ball skills that your DBs have compared to what we've seen so far is a whole different animal. And so how does Raiola adjust to that will be the biggest question for me. The one interception he threw this season was last week, and it was really just a play where he threw it up. Our receiver had the ball and lost it. Like, by the time they came to the ground, he had it ripped away from him by the DB. So other than that, I mean, their numbers are very, very similar.
Very similar. Yeah, I looked at it before we started here too. Yeah.
And then looking overall, just kind of like, Illinois' team stats. And I was looking through these earlier. So let me pull them back up here. So we have, let me go to team. All right. So when it comes to Nebraska, right? Nebraska has been a little bit different in how they handle the game and how they go about it, whether they're a time of possession team or not. Northern Illinois, it seemed like we're scoring fast, not really having as much time of possession. But right now, Illinois averaging about 32 minutes of time of possession, 2-1 in terms of fumbles lost, fumbles to loss. So y'all fumbled twice, lost one, and the turnover ratio is 8. So, overall pretty good in terms of, and the one thing about the 3-3-5 that you have to be able to do is you have to be able to force turnovers, right? It's a high risk, high reward defense. And I think when you have two guys who are two efficient quarterbacks, both going up against a very risk reward defense where you need to force turnovers, I think that's the most intriguing part of this game to me. Is it's just going to, I think this all comes down to who wins the turnover battle. In my opinion, this game is just who wins the turnover battle. If Illinois wins the turnover battle 2-1, I think they have a better shot to win the game versus vice versa.
I mean, I think that's about right. I think what we need to do is turn it into a game where it's Luke Altmaier against Dylan Raiola and see which one makes the play. Luke obviously has a couple years of experience on Dylan. If, again, Nebraska is able to game plan and make the running backs the focus and make them successful and not put pressure on Dylan Raiola, I think Nebraska wins comfortably.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for us, of course, is Nash and Ty. Nash, everything starts with Nash Hutmacher up the middle, number 0. The Polar Bear Express, you'll see him out there wreaking havoc on your center. But basically, the job of him and the job of y'all's nose as well is to basically try to take on as many people as you can and create as much havoc as you can up front, so you take on extra blockers, so you get the numbers versus the offense. And that's another key part of this is just your offensive line. And how would you say your offensive line has performed thus far?
The 2 tackles on each side have performed fantastic. It's the interior that just hasn't. And I know maybe you weren't able to hear this part early in the show while you're trying to fix your issues. But, the reason our the running game really hasn't gotten going is because our center and our 2 guards have just kind of struggled. And, the defensive lines we've even gone against have been able to penetrate. The pass blocking has done okay. They haven't made Luke run for his life or anything like the beginning part of last year, but the running game just hasn't been there just because we haven't been able to open up holes. So, again, that's one of the reasons I'm so, I don't know what the word is, but leery about Friday night's game compared to how I felt about the game coming into the season.
For sure. And BA here. So Justin C. Ty Robinson went on a QB spy at one point last game, caught me off guard in the film breakdown. I have not got a chance to watch the Northern Iowa film. I've been watching the Illinois film, so I'm still on the defensive film for the Illinois Kansas game. So I'm watching through that now. And also, Coach BA, we did a watch party for Colorado, North Dakota State earlier this season. So everybody who's in the chat, if you want to go over to the Big Ten show, and I can drop it here in the chat for you. If you want to go over to the Big Ten show and, drop a sub over there, we are getting that back fired up. Again, Sonny was making a move. So haven't had a chance to really post anything in a while, but what we're going to do is we're going to be posting Big Ten power rankings, but we're also going to be doing a watch party on the Big Ten show. So we're going to be watching the game with y'all if y'all want to join in. And I'm trying to just pull up the Big Ten show here.
Yeah, while he does that, Friday night, I don't know. We may start right at the beginning of the game. We might start at halftime, but the idea is Justin and I are going to be watching the games live with you. We'll have some guests drop in every now and then, some that you're familiar with, whether they're on the Nebraska side or some maybe you're not familiar with because they're from the Illinois side, and some national media guys who kind of cover the conference in general. I think if you watch any of the previous Big Ten shows, Justin and I, we have fun with it. It was a very high-speed growing channel, and I'm looking forward to picking that pace back up this week.
100%. I dropped it there in the chat for y'all. Y'all stay tuned. We're probably going to be posting the link to the watch party probably today. I'll probably be getting that up and posted for y'all today. So that way y'all can join us there. And then again, if any of y'all want to hop in, we'll be bringing people in. If y'all want to join in with us or whatever, I'll take your opinions, whether you want me to start at the beginning or not. Sonny will probably be there at halftime, but I may be there at the beginning. I may just be there at halftime, depending. So yeah, we'll just take your thoughts on that as well. And if anybody wants to join me at the start of the game, then yeah, go ahead. And Coach BA said, if I'm not in Lincoln, obviously. Okay, cool. Yeah, so you might be out at the game. That's right. I saw that. So Ken's going to be out there as well. So Sonny, do you have any questions for us or for me in terms of this game?
I mean, I guess I wanted to ask, how big of an impact is that guard who's not going to be playing? Does that change anything, or do you guys really have a next man up? Because again, I know you guys have been recruiting like crazy, and you've been utilizing that transfer portal. Yeah. Is if Illinois were to lose one of their offensive linemen, there's a pretty significant downgrade. Is that something that troubles you at all for Nebraska?
Yeah, it is. The offensive line depth is a struggle as already is, because we had an injury right before the season, and then Micah Mazuka was the big guard that came over from Florida into Nebraska and was my favorite lineman coming into the season. I thought he had the best chance to be our highest graded lineman. Of course, Ben Scott, our center, is unbelievable, but he struggled this season. But Mazuka is the thing I like about Mazuka, and a lot of us like about Mazuka, is he's just built for the trenches. He's got that nasty style to him, right? He wants to get in there and in the trenches, and he wants to fight you in there. He just wants to battle you. Again, the picture from Florida where he's squared up with the I don't know if it was Tennessee or whatever, but he's squared up in his boxing stance, ready to go. And so yeah, I do think that's going to hurt. And that's part of the reason I think we were talking about it earlier, and you saw somebody talking about it in terms of with the odds, because, he's got SEC experience. He was at Florida. He was at Baylor. So he's been around the block, and he's just an all-around good lineman. So, the nasty edge to him may have gotten too much, of him. And Matt Rule has a standard there. And I think Matt Rule's just showing that the standard is more valuable than any player. And that's the culture.
Similar to what Brett Bielema is doing with Terrence Brooks.
Yeah.
It's it doesn't matter how much we paid you in NIL. It doesn't matter where you played previously and at what level. Once you're on campus, you got to prove it out on the field just like everybody else. And that's both on and off the field. So I get those vibes. I have one more question for you, Justin.
Yes, sir.
You and I, we talked a little bit about Caleb Williams yesterday privately. I need to ask you, and Nebraska fans in this chat and whoever's going to watch this in the future, do you think this whole Dylan Raiola and Pat Mahomes thing is kind of weird? The rest of us do? Come on.
But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody's running with it, right? Because again, Raiola's already talked about, he's had his hair cut like that since the 7th grade, before he even knew who Patrick Mahomes was, right? And he wears the same sunglasses as the guy, but they're friends. They train together. And somebody talked about the AirPods. I'm like, everybody has AirPods. What are you talking about? Most of the population has AirPods. But I do think part of him is trolling with the whole, how he runs and kind of jumps and brings his knees to his chest. I think he's trolling. Yeah. I think he's trolling everybody with that. I think he's you know what? Screw it. Let's just go do this, because people are talking about him, right?
I love it. I saw a tweet that legit made me laugh. Have you seen the Bad Guys video? I think that was a movie with Will Ferrell and what's his name? I forget. They're two cops where basically oh man, I wish I remember. But anyways, the story was you had Michael Keaton playing the chief, and he would constantly reference TLC lyrics when he was giving during the movie. It was just a part of the script. And Will Ferrell would just be like, why do you keep talking about, were those TLC lyrics? And Michael Keaton would just stone face act like, what are you talking about? No,
Yeah.
what? No. But
Yeah.
he did this like 4-5 times in the movie.
Yeah.
And people kept saying like, dude, you did it again. Those are TLC lyrics. And he's just, again.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I
you know what I'm
remember that.
talking about. So I forget the name of the movie, but
the thing about it is, like, he can't help the fact that he's built like Patrick Mahomes. He wears 15 for Tebow, and like he's come out in an interview and said this, and he can't help that, like, he has the same build, and he trains with the same quarterback coach. They're friends. They train together in the offseason. So of course their on-field mannerisms are going to be very similar. I literally think like people just run with it, right? And
the same way I was defending Caleb last night, you're doing it with Dylan right now. So that's fine.
Yes.
It's loyalty, right?
But it's at the same time, like he's already addressed it. Like he literally came out and addressed it and said, I wear 15 for Tebow. I've had my haircut like this in 7th grade, which you can go back and look at. The only things that he really does that really he chose to do is that whole running out and bringing his knees to his chest. Like, people are talking about what he wears for warmups. What do you mean? Like, they just have the same red color, right? I'm sorry that they're both on a team with red and they wear warm up. Like, I don't understand it. I think people are running with it because they want to talk negative about something. And I think if people saw that most of the stuff is just a matter of coincidence, but the actual on-field stuff, of course, if you train with a guy who's above your level, you train with his quarterback coach who trained him how to play the game of football, you're going to look a lot alike on the field. The fact that he walks like him and everything, like, if you're around somebody enough training with them all the time, okay, that can happen. That might happen sometimes. But I think a lot of people, but part of me thinks Dylan Raiola almost wants to troll with it a little bit too.
Yeah.
And I think as long as people are talking about you, who cares? It's the fact that Nebraska is being talked about, whatever.
Exactly.
Let them talk, and it was funny because Dylan Raiola's sister actually liked one of my tweets defending him that said that too. So I'm pretty sure I'm pretty on track there. So,
and by the way, just to the chat, that was a very tongue-in-cheek.
Oh yeah. He's not
with Justin.
Yeah, at least he doesn't sound like Kermit the Frog. Yes, use the same personal trainer as Mahomes. Jeff Christensen, I believe, is their quarterback coach. But yes, Kermit the Frog. You know how I feel about Patrick Mahomes. Not a fan. Would never want my quarterback to be Patrick Mahomes. So I'll leave that there, though. I'll leave that there. I'm not gonna get into any arguments with Chiefs fans. Already almost had that happen last week when I was saying CJ Stroud's the GOAT. So, all right, Sonny. Well, we're over our hour here, so I appreciate you being gracious with your time, man, stopping by. And we're about to get off here, and we're going to record some stuff as well over for his Locked On Illini channel, and we'll record for a Big Ten show as well. But do you want to tell the people, about where they can find you and what you got coming up this week from us on that channel?
Yeah, just do a quick search for Locked On Illini. I'm doing a lot of Nebraska content this week just because I know that's going to bring views. And so, I really like to start. Justin and I today are going to be talking about just the kind of parallels that Matt Rule and Brett Bielema have in turning around programs that were very down, let's put it mildly. And so, if you're looking to get to know the Illini a little bit more this week, so you know what you're going to go up against on Friday, find me at Locked On Illini. But if nothing else, find us both on Big Ten Show. Justin and I, we've got some really good fun ideas for that channel. And in particular, Friday, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping it's not a blowout unless for either side, because I don't want either of us in a bad mood for most of that game. But I think we're going to have good content, and some of your favorite writers and people on Twitter, I think, will be making appearances.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a lot of good contributors that come on and help us with that show. He said we're going to ask like Roger Stafford and many more throwing crazy arm angles. Matthew Stafford's actually, believe it or not, his godfather too. So Dylan Raio's godfather is Matthew Stafford. So that's another thing too. That's another factor. Sonny isn't bad for an Illinois fan. Does Sonny paint his fingernails like Caleb? No, I don't think he does.
Tune in on Friday, Big Ten show. We'll see.
If Illinois loses, he'll paint his nails.
If Illinois wins, you'll paint your nails.
See, the way my nails situated right now, I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't. We'll find another bet. But
yeah, we'll figure something out.
But no, I appreciate everybody, stopping by, tuning into the show. Thank y'all for stopping by, asking your questions. As always, I appreciate your support. Sorry about the ads. Blame YouTube. But with that being said, y'all join us at the watch party, the Big Ten show. Again, you could find it on there. I'll drop it in the description of this video after it posts, and that way y'all can hop on there and come join us for the game. So with that being said, again, thank you, Sonny, and we will see you on the next video. Peace.